can say this about season 4. It is going to be so worth the wait.
Nowhere, actually.
A wrecking machine. I'll take it.
I'm still figuring out my own style, Mark, actually.
It was great.
It took 2 minutes and I had to answer, yeah, go for it.
Are you sure you're not interested? I was like, don't ask me again. I can't refuse that twice.
In Holland, in one country.
She got me so deep and underwater and I drank it. That's not good.
You'll try chocolate from South Africa to Australia to England. It will taste so different.
So it's been really amazing that it's been with you after 10 long years.
The first title we were messing around with, we were going to call it Lockdown. And then after a while, we actually kind of realised, God, this is dragging on a lot longer than what we thought it was going to be.
I didn't want to give people a reminder.
Our bass player has a band. We were like, let's go on the road, man. But and then it just came to a screeching halt.
We had to work on like how I was biting the carrot. Like I had to do it very purposefully, you know? You didn't want a weak bite, but you didn't want a bite that was too strong.
Someone jumps the stage and one of our techs just body slams him to the ground and you can see me kick him.
I guess I was too distracted. I was having too much fun. Never a bad thing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Got it. Hello.
Hello, Mark.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts here in Seattle, Washington, in the United States of America. And thank you so much for joining me on this Thursday, April 15th, 2021. And my guest today is a fantastic metal band from Finland. Their new album, Vultures Die Alone, was just released on April 9th on AFM Records. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Arion.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. It's very late in the evening here in Finland, so kind of setting for a good mood for tonight.
Nice. Yeah, it's almost lunchtime over here in Seattle.
That's like very different.
Yeah, for sure. But thank you so much for taking the time today. I can't wait to talk to you about your band and about the new record.
Yeah, thank you. Pretty excited for this.
Yeah, so Vultures Die Alone. I'm curious about the title. Is there a meaning behind that? Meaning, like, if you act like a vulture, then you're gonna not have any friends or any supporters?
Well, quite literally, yes, because it's like vultures as a metaphor in English. I guess if I've understood it correctly, you know, I guess it means like people who are like opportunistic or like really savage in life, you know, kind of taking advantage of other people and like kind of trying to gain benefit through that. So that's basically like about those moments in life or those people in our lives which kind of hopefully deserve get what they deserve, you know. So it's kind of that's what the title is about.
Okay, and obviously all the bands that I've talked to during the last year because of the pandemic and the lockdown. Was the new album done before all of this happened, or was it finished during it? What was the timeline like?
It was actually finished just before the pandemic started, like writing-wise, you know. And right when the pandemic started, you know, we were actually like kind of going to a recording break anyway. So we actually didn't like get like too much harm out of the pandemic right away, you know. So because we were going to like recording, and we started recording the album in around, I guess it was like late April or something like that, due to a little like difficulties. For example, our producer Matthias got trapped in Brazil because of the pandemic, and that kind of delayed things for us. So it complicated things, of course, but like no direct harm was actually caused to us. So everything went well for the first like half a year of the pandemic because of the like recording process. It kept us busy.
Okay, so when did you start writing then, like the first half before you had to kind of take that break? So was that sometime in 2019 then?
I started like really early, like 2019, like writing songs, but to be honest, it wasn't going like really well at the moment because we had lots of shows. Like seriously, we played like a lot of shows in 2019, so things were kind of quiet until like October that year, and then a couple of like unfortunate things happened for me, like personally, and also like for the band's career as well. I'm not gonna go into that, but anyway, like that happened, and that kind of actually like gave me lots of inspiration for writing this kind of an album. And I really started writing, and for example, in January, like in just a couple of weeks, I actually wrote like 7 or 8 pieces of lyrics during that time. So it was like a huge portion of the album written during that time, and suddenly we had an album to record. So like sometimes like those unfortunate like happenings can turn out like really good production wise.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do know what you mean. I'm a musician myself, and I know that sometimes the toughest times in my life is when some of the best music comes out of me.
Then you exactly understand what's going on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been there and I have done that. I'm sorry that you had to go through some tough times, but on the flip side, the silver lining is that you ended up with some great songs and some things for the new album.
Exactly, and I will cherish those silver linings like over those bad happenings,
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just kind of curious too. I've been asking all of my guests this. How have you fared then, just overall during the pandemic time? I mean, have you been able to stay busy with other things, or because some people have been really busy and some people haven't been able to do anything just because there's been no opportunities?
Yeah, well, like I said, the first half of the year went really busy for us because it was like lots of recording and shit like that, and like financially I've been performing quite well actually because I'm a guitar teacher by my second profession, so I'm like teaching guitar for income, and that's been working out like quite good actually during the pandemic. After the album was finished, it was actually quite difficult to I was still doing financially really fine because of those guitar lessons and songwriting royalties and shit like that. But like mentally it was like a difficult time because I didn't feel like writing any new music because I was kind of exhausted, like many musicians are after finishing an album, and it kind of time felt like it was like time felt like it was like static still, it was like really I was feeling really empty and it felt really shitty in general. So now like after the release of the album around a week ago, it's been feeling actually like really good because of the response, the excitement that's it's been building up, and now doing like really fine, going towards the summer.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad that I've had a chance to talk to some other guests that they're kind of trying to figure out, when do we release our new record? Do we release it now? Do we wait, until things completely open up for like maybe another year from now? Was there any of that kind of discussion for your band?
Yeah, well, we were actually supposed to release, our initial plans were for January, but because of the little recording process, we actually moved it to April, and after moving the release date for the first time, like postponing it kind of didn't feel like we want to postpone it again, because for example, what happened with our second album was that we had a thing going with recording deals. We were kind of switching labels at the moment, and that delayed our album for 10 months. Can you believe that? Like seriously. And when the album was released, it felt like it was really old, and it was kind of difficult to for example, do interviews because it felt like really felt like the album was like really shitty and it's really old and shit like that, even though it wasn't. So we didn't want this to happen regarding this album. We just want to release it and hope for a really good response and tour later when it's possible, which is most likely going to be possible in 2022.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, That makes sense. If you've already been through it before, we had to, postpone a release for your second album. That you're like, we don't want to go through that again.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to talk to some people in the film industry, and they've talked about how like they have to do press for something that they did like 3 years ago, and they're kind of like, well, I know I did that movie, but I've already done like 5 things since then, so it's like it feels really odd. So yeah, for a band, it's even worse because you got to get out there and tour. When it opens up, you have to get out there and tour to support and promote things.
Exactly. You kind of have to keep the momentum going when you release something, like support the album as heavy as you can. But now it's this misfortunate time, so what can you do?
Yeah, the plus side is that for the fans, it's really a pick-me-up for the fans when bands put out new records and new music, so they can think like, hey, there's something new I can listen to. It can help me get through my tough times, and also know that there's some light at the end of this tunnel, that eventually we will be back at shows, seeing bands on stage doing their thing, and it just makes you feel a little bit better. I know it makes me feel better.
Exactly. Hopefully, at least the record will make people and our fans feel as happy as possible, like some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just curious, when you write your material, are you the type of writer that you have very distinct songs that you want to put on the record, or do you like write a ton and just pick the best things from that batch of songs?
I'm actually the type of guy who doesn't write anything extra, I'm the kind of guy who just goes straight into that, like whole, how do you say, that kind of like, I want every song I write to be on the album. I'm kind of working on that, like from the start, and I sometimes take a lot of time finishing a song, because when I have a song idea, I actually believe it's always good, and it just needs to be perfected, and that's the way it kind of works in Arion, It's pretty simple that way, and there are hardly any extra songs ever, because just because of that. It might sound lazy to some musicians or some people actually, but that's just my way of writing. I kind of like really cherish every kind of little idea I have for a song, and I want to make a good song out of them. So that's how it works for me.
Okay, no, and that makes sense. I think there's 2 different schools of that, and I understand both of them, especially like what you're talking about, because you want to sit there and hone your craft, and you want to take the time to come out. If you have a great riff or a great melody, then you want to sit there and build off of that. And it's also a bit of a challenge. Can I make this the way I want it and how I hear it in my head? Can I get this whole thing out?
Exactly. Or can you sometimes find something that you can't hear yet? It's like that's how it really works.
Yeah, for sure. You want to take that musical exploration and see, where's this going to take me? Which is kind of actually segues into, for me, when I was listening to the new album, that it definitely has elements that sound a little bit different than your previous work. Was that intentional or just kind of organically happened?
Both actually, because the metal scene has been evolving a lot. Like it's not easy to see perhaps, but there's like we used to be a power metal band back in the days, and we want to be a power metal band, but there was like 4 years between our first and second album due to some misfortunate events, and somehow in like 2018, and especially after that, it kind of didn't feel like this like generic style of power metal was relevant anymore. So it was kind of, the whole music scene was kind of guiding me and us towards writing and making different kind of music, like adding American and British influence on that kind of symphonic metal sound. By American and British influence, I mean that kind of like heavy riffing, the sounds and being like guitar heavy, and that's kind of felt like really good direction, because in our band, there's lots of that good musicianship, like lots of skill within our band, and we kind of wanted to show how we play, and shit like that. So that's why the guitars and drums and everything and solos have been perfected on this album. So that's kind of part of the evolution. But it was also like I really feel like the second album was kind of a bridge album, between the very power metallic first album, Last of Us, and this one, which is like really kind of modern, if you want to call it like melodic metal, and by those means, I kind of mean. I think it may have been like a bit unintentional as well. It might have been like cooking somewhere like really deep, within us, that kind of a new sound which we were like going towards. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it does make sense, because it could be something that you're just kind of, I know for myself, sometimes things that come out of me musically, I didn't really know that they're necessarily there, but it could have been stuff I was influenced by, either subconsciously or whatever. And then next thing I know, I'm playing some riffs like that. Sounds kind of different. Where'd that come from?
Exactly. Exactly, that's how it kind of goes. And for example, my influences have been changing a lot over the years. Initially, it was something like Symphony X and bands like that, and Stratovarius, Children of Bodom was always there, shit like that. But nowadays, for example, Bring Me the Horizon, I Prevail, and really good bands like that kind of influenced me a lot, like that kind of pop metal sound, which is like really contemporary. And that can be kind of heard on our music nowadays. I believe so, at least.
Yeah, no, I would agree, because when I was listening to the new album, there's definitely elements of a modern metal sound to it, but there's still your roots are still there too. So it's a really interesting mix of like a hybrid of different metal music genres now.
I'm really happy you hear it so, because it's that's how you feel like, because that's what we were like really aiming at, like keeping those symphonic elements, those melodies, but like getting rid of like too much like classics, like that kind of German sound, if you may, which is a joke, of course, but I mean that, like we didn't want to sound like an old band. Like we were in our 50s or something like that, and playing that kind of like Iron Maiden style of dragons and swords kind of metal. We didn't want to sound like that, so that's basically it.
Well, you achieved your goal, because it definitely has a much more modern sound, but like I was mentioning, it has a nice mix of things. So the foundation's still there, but you built different layers on top of it, which is really going to, I think, broaden your audience, especially here in America.
I hope so, at least, because that's kind of what I've been like really curious about regarding this album. If it will work for like young people, and if it will work for people like outside of like Europe, for example, like America, especially because that I know that kind of like heavy riffing is really popular in the States, especially. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Yeah, I do think that, and I'm an old fart, so a lot of the bands that I was into, and I grew up with Priest and Maiden and AC/DC and all that stuff. But then when the newer type of metal came in, it took me a while to kind of get used to it, because there's a different type of vocal style, there's a different type of riffing going on, and but now I like it. So yeah, when I have a band like yours put those together, it's like, oh, this kind of is like the best of both worlds for me then.
Well, that's kind of everything I could hope for when it comes to a response to this album, like seriously, because that's kind of what I really want this album to do, to connect those people who are like older and like that kind of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest stuff, the classic metal, and also to those people who really like that modern sound, that heaviness, high quality production, which the new era kind of provides us with, and just like that. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm just curious, like you mentioned earlier, there's such great musicianship in the band. Do you have like your own home studio that you do your demos in? Are you into the production side of things as well with all your music? It kind of seems like if you're not already, you're probably heading in that direction, is my guess.
Yeah, I am, because it's like, for example, on a second album, I was actually taking a lot of charge when it comes to responsibility, when it comes to that kind of production kind of stage, I was like I especially work a lot with vocals, because it's kind of my territory, even though I'm a guitar player, and of course I always record my own solos for any Arion album, and on this album it's kind of like we used an external producer in Matias Kupiainen, who is the guitar player for Stratovarius, our drummer's brother, actually, and he's been like around always, but we still do a lot of things like ourselves. Tobias, our drummer, I mentioned already, he is like a trained audio engineer, so he's like really good with this type of stuff. and like really professional when it comes to that. He always got bass guitar for us, and we always work on those like orchestrations on our own. We don't hire an external guy to do that, which is something many bands do. You know, for example, Nightwish does that, which makes a lot of sense because it's a heavy amount of work. Seriously, like 3 or 4 days per song. But yeah, I'm very much into like production, and still learning on some level. Of course, I wouldn't mix an album like professionally, but but yeah, I'm like a lot into like that kind of stuff, and really good with especially like guitars and vocals.
Okay, yeah, no, it just kind of makes sense to me that when you have a musicianship and a musician like yourself, that it just kind of goes hand in hand, that you're going to be wanting to work on the production side of things and the recording side of things, that the more you do it, eventually you might be like, you know, I'm just going to do this myself at some point down the road.
Exactly. It's not like I feel that kind of a need to like so much to do my own records, like from the start to the like a very late production stage. But it's a good option, and the more you know and the more skill you have in that, it kind of helps also when you work with an external producer, because you can explain things, you know, you understand their process, you understand where they're going at, and you can talk with them like in a way that makes much more sense to both. You know, you kind of don't have that big gap between a producer and like a very like classic kind of artist who doesn't know anything about like production. So it's really good to know as much as possible, and to like try to learn as much as possible like throughout the years you're doing your artistic career. So that's my recommendation to everyone who's doing music as a career.
Yeah, no, it's very good advice. It reminds me of like, I used to work as a model-based photographer. So I always told the models, you should learn how to do some basic things with the camera, so you understand what the photographer's doing. That way you can communicate with them. You also have a better idea in your head what you're looking for, and not just doing the poses.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. Like, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, as we're kind of getting close to wrapping things up, about so you've been teaching guitar lessons. What have you been learning from your students? Because I know there's always a lot that you can learn from your students, not just the other way around.
Yeah, that's true. I'm kind of like I've been privileged to like sometimes teach like really good professionals, you know, like the best guitar players from Finland sometimes, which ask me for advice when it comes to like right hand technique or something like that, which I specialize in, and but mainly I kind of teach, you know, like beginners, and from both I can learn a lot, because it's like especially when it comes to like we were talking about music production and helping a singer, for example, in a recording situation. I've learned a lot about like things when situations where you have to like narrow the gap between someone who knows music theory and knows stuff, and someone who doesn't know that much, and kind of like I've become a better person at like explaining things in a mature way, like towards like, for example, a singer or someone like that. And I've been like really able to learn people's learning process. That's kind of what I'm like really happy about. I kind of understand like what is the easiest way to like teach someone to do something, or like correct someone without hurting their feelings, or like making them feel like they are shit. Because, for example, a singer in the studio will start singing really bad if you like hurt him somehow or hurt her somehow. You know, that's what happens easily. Or a guitar player, you can't tell that your palm mutes sound like shit, you know, because he will just get afraid, you know. So that's what I've kind of learned when teaching, like approaching things in a like easy way, and understanding like every musician or student as an individual. That's what has I have like learned a lot, you know, throughout my years of teaching.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, that you want to have more of a positive approach with somebody when you need to critique them and how to help them and make a suggestion, instead of saying you're playing like shit today or something.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like obvious, but it's actually harder to do in practice than you could believe. Finding the right words for someone is the correct answer there.
Yeah, for sure. And just to wrap this up, I know there's a big question mark still over this year about bands touring and playing shows, but what do you have coming up? Is there another video coming up? Is there any kind of live streaming coming up?
Well, we kind of want to stay as connected to the fans as possible, like doing these like gallops or and shit like that on like our socials as much as possible, and trying to stay active there, even though it's difficult because the topics are running scarce because they're on the shows, But hopefully we get into touring in 2022 at least, and I'm actually started to go back into writing right now because there's a response for the album, so it feels like it's kind of like inspiring again, the whole writing process. So that's what's going on right now, and hopefully the world will open as soon as possible.
Yes, here. Hopefully very, very soon. Hey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. And again, everybody, the album came out last week on April 9th, so Vultures Die Alone is available right now, so you can buy it anywhere that you want to on AFM's site or anywhere else that you normally buy your music. And again, thank you so much for taking the time. Have a good night over there, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you rocking the stage soon.
Thank you so much, Mark. This was a huge pleasure, and take care. Stay healthy.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.